The offseason is officially over. We've made it to game week. We'll roll out the plan for the next 18 weeks plus some. Coming up on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for September 1st, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show grows each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. A lot of different subjects that we've been talking about leading up to this week, game week. So we'll get your calls and texts as we close out the show. We'll do that in segment number 3. Before we get into the teeth of an actual game week, I do want you to hear part of the conversation I had with Michael Giannitti from SpotTrack.com late last week on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920, talking about Jakobi Meyers and his contract and what kind of a salary him and his representation could be looking for. I'm not saying that they're going to get, but could be looking for, and why. It was a really good conversation. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and really has a lot to do with just getting into game week mode, because that is what we're in. That's right, the first week of the regular season is here. Excited about that. We'll jump into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show. That's Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Off top, man, we got to celebrate multiple things. It's Labor Day. A lot of folks are off work today. It's the first of the month. Wake up, wake up, wake up. It's the first of the month. Like, we get the Hood holiday and Labor Day at the same time. We can't go wrong, right? And it's starting a game week. Yeah, we're good. So shout out to the Hood holiday. Shout out to the first of the month, Labor Day. If you are, again, have the day off of work and don't have to worry about going in, you get one more day of R&R, a little rest and relaxation. Make sure you, use it to the best of your ability, because you know you won't get that back. So shout out to you no matter what you're doing on this afternoon or whatever time you happen to be listening to this show. So we made it to game week. So I want to kind of quickly go over what we'll be doing the next 18 weeks for anyone who may be new to the show, or just a reminder to anyone who's been listening to the show for quite a while. Mondays and Tuesdays, we typically kind of review the game that happened on Sunday, right? Obviously, if it's Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football, we'll adjust. But normally Mondays and Tuesdays, we kind of dedicate to what happened during the game. If it's a home game, you'll get some sound from the player's locker or the locker room. Following the game, I'm able to get into the locker room. I don't go on the road unless it's a specific game. Used to go on the road, but just don't go on the road now. It's just so hard to kind of fit in with my schedule. But all the home games, I'm able to attend and be in that locker room, win or lose, following the game, so you get some good sound. If there's something, good to come bring to the table, we'll definitely do that. So that's kind of what a typical Monday and Tuesday will be here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Wednesday, we start turning the page to the next opponent. So, kind of go over what happened on Sunday, on Monday, then, a little bit more correction or whatever the case may be on Tuesday. Then, okay, now you're over that. Now it's on to the next week and the next week and the next week. And that's just how it goes. Thursdays, I've come to find out in the 7 years that I've been part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Thursdays are people's favorite days. Crossover edition. That's when another host from the Locked On Podcast Network will preview the game. So this week, for example, it'll be Nick Cattles. He's the new host there of the Locked On Patriots show. He's actually a guy that I've known for a long time. Did sports radio. First, he did sports radio in Boston. Then he moved to Sacramento, California, and actually had an opportunity to possibly work with him there in Sacramento. Obviously, that did not happen, but me and Nick are really good friends, so he's now doing the Locked On Patriots show. It used to be Mike Debate, but now this year, Nick Cattles took over. So Nick will join us on Thursday. It'll be a little preview, kind of the strength, weakness, X factor, path to victory for both teams, kind of going over the lines, courtesy of FanDuel, just all that good stuff. We'll do that on Thursdays, but most times people kind of find that to be their favorite show just so they get to learn a little bit more about the upcoming opponent of the Silver and Black. And then on Friday, I give you my keys to victory. What is it going to take for the Raiders to come away with the victory? I'll give you a prediction if I think they're going to get the dub or they're going to take an L, whatever the case may be, and why. We'll do that. So that's basically kind of like the skeleton plan for what we'll do. And that'll be the next 18 weeks, right? Obviously, they've got a bye week coming up after week 7, so we'll adjust during that bye week. But that's pretty much the blueprint for the whole regular season for 2025. And hopefully we have to do it longer than 18 weeks. We have to go longer than 18 weeks. That means they made the playoffs, right? And that's the goal for everybody. So hopefully that does happen, but we're guaranteed 18 weeks for sure, 17 games. So real quickly, kind of want to give you a preview of how we do things, strength, weakness, and X factor. And I'll say right now, again, it's on Monday. The Raiders actually practice today. We'll be out there around 2:30 and then talk to a few players after practice. Strength of the team, I would think right now, hands down, is the offense. I think the ground game and the offensive line coming together are going to be two of the biggest keys, right? That's going to be what this team needs. For this team to be able to do what they want to do offensively and get all their weapons involved, Brock Bowers, Jakobi Meyers, Big Mike, right? Trey Tucker, Amari Cooper, newly added Amari Cooper, everyone that they've got weapons on the offensive side, they're going to have to get that ground game together. And the offensive line is going to have to do their duty. Now, I think that they will. I'm really kind of impressed with the way that the offensive line has come together. I'm so glad that they were able to settle in on a starting five before the season started. So that, to me, feels like it's going to be the strength of the team. I think the weakness, we probably all agree, is still the secondary on defense, trying to come together, trying to figure out who's going to be the main guys out there. I mean, Pete Carroll the other day basically alluded to the fact that there's going to be a rotation at the outside corner spot, and that's less than ideal, right? But we know that they're still tinkering with it. Darian Porter's got a shot to be out there. Eric Stokes has got a shot to be out there. He will be out there for one of the spots, but Porter's got an opportunity. You know, Caillou Blue Kelly, if he's healthy, he'll have an opportunity. Darnay Holmes is still on the roster. He'll have an opportunity, but it doesn't sound like they're actually set on any quite yet, right? They don't look like they're really ready to say, all right, this is going to be this outside corner, this is going to be the nickel slot, you know, and there still could be some roster adjustments, and you'll still see Jeremy Chin come up and play that big nickel too. So I think the weakness is still the secondary, and the X factor, I'd say, for the Raiders right now is Chip Kelly. Again, these can always change based off how this team continues to build, but Chip Kelly as offensive coordinator, being a really good play caller, sharp offensive mind, probably the sharpest offensive mind that the Raiders have had in a very long time, I think is definitely the X factor, and it's going to help that offense be the strength, like I said a little bit earlier. So I think that we probably all would agree, again, at this stage of the game, we'll see how this team evolves, but heading into the first game of the season, coming up on Sunday versus the New England Patriots, I think it's safe to say the strength is the offense, the weakness is the secondary, and the X factor is Chip Kelly. So that's what I got for you. Segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll take a little bit of a turn. You'll hear what Michael Giannitti from SpotTrack.com, as a guest on my radio show, had to say about Jakobi Meyers, what his contract, not requirements, but his contract asking price could be and why. Him and his representation. We'll do that in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, and the first one is the title sponsor, which is Gametime. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at the checkout, it is frustrating, and that's why you use Gametime. That's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. You can pull up Gametime and in a couple of easy taps, see amazing deals. I mean, your favorite NFL teams as low as $100. You want to be at that first game at Allegiant Stadium, Raiders and Chargers, Monday Night Football? Boom. Gametime is the way to make it happen. How do you do that? Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go. Download Gametime today. I also want to tell you about another one of our great sponsors, and that is FanDuel. And with the NFL season being here, FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And there's so many different ways to get in on the action. Building a same-game parlay, jumping in on live action. You could do that as it unfolds. That's always a lot of fun. FanDuel makes it really fun and exciting each and every game, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sunday. So if you're ready to play, which you should be, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to go ahead and jump into this conversation, or part of the conversation I had with Michael Giannitti from SpotTrack.com on my radio show last week. And remember, last Monday, we found out that Jakobi Meyers requested a trade because his contract negotiations, he's trying to get that contract extension, has come to basically a standstill where nothing is going on. So a lot of people have been questioning how much money should he be getting at the wide receiver that he is for the Raiders. And now this year, going into the final year of his deal, he's supposed to make $10.5 million base salary. And so I don't know. I want to be perfectly clear and transparent. I don't know what his asking price is. I have not been told by anyone. He has not said anything. Nobody has said what his asking price is. So I just want to go ahead and put that out there right now, because there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of conversation of what it should be, what it could be, why it can't be this, that, and the other. So I was like, you know what? Let me go to somebody who has some kind of formula. So Michael Giannitti, SpotTrack.com, joined my radio show last week to talk about it. And look, there's going to be some numbers that you're going to hear in the next couple seconds when you hear this, like I said, portion of the conversation that may say, oh, man, that's too much money. But just listen to it and think about how he's coming from, the point of view that he's bringing. And remember, negotiations always has a starting point and then a landing spot. So here we go. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Part of my conversation with Michael Giannitti, SpotTrack.com, talking about Jakobi Meyers and his potential contract. So this has been going on for a while when it comes to Jakobi Meyers and the contract negotiations between him and his representation and the Raiders. And, he's not a Jamar Chase. He's not a Justin Jefferson. He's not even a Terry McLaurin guy where they're going to get top dollar. But realistically, the way that you guys do your formulas, what is the contract that you feel like Jakobi Meyers and his representation should be asking for?
Yeah, the math is in his favor because we've had some older players now secure pretty decent numbers, and that generally trickles down to players of his ilk, which is, 28, pretty prime age right now to score a decent contract extension. And look, if you talk about the whole situation, he's the number one right now until he's not with this organization. So that's how the negotiations start and finish back in February, most likely, in terms of how they started. So we're at a minimum of $28.5 million per year, and I realize that sounds ridiculous for a player that just peaked 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, but that's where the top WR2 money is in this league right now. Q, that's where Jalen Waddle, that's where T. Higgins sit right now in terms of average annual salary. So if I'm an agent, attached to this situation, those are the numbers I'm starting with, and mathematically speaking, it's not hard to get there.
We know how NFL contracts are, and we know that they're able to have a lot of wiggle room, and the way that they construct the contracts, it ultimately boils down to the guaranteed money. So how many different ways do you think that they could really kind of finagle this contract to make it favorable for the player and also the team?
That's the money right there. That's it. So we can sell it one way, we can actually make it stick another way. So you referenced McLaurin. He's got big numbers on the surface, but at the nitty gritty of this thing, it's going to be basically 2 for $50. So when we think about it in that kind of terms, if we can all agree that Jakobi Meyers probably doesn't have the ceiling of Terry McLaurin, we're talking about probably 2 for $45 on a full guarantee, at least at signing, and then we can go year to year after that when he's 30 years old. So if we start this thing at 2 for $40, if I'm the team saying he's a $20 million player, we can go 2 for $40 fully guaranteed. We're listening, right? We're all probably listening to that conversation, and that's probably exactly what his ceiling says it should be if he stays with the Raiders. If he goes elsewhere, he's a number 3 option, obviously, if things change. But in terms of what things look like right now for 2025 in the Raiders, that's probably fair market value for Jakobi Meyers.
It feels like it's fair market value, especially for a guy that didn't put any balls on the ground. He caught passes from basically me, Ari, and you last year, right? I mean, just caught passes from everyone and never made us think about anything, and didn't this whole offseason. He didn't hold out. He didn't hold in. He didn't throw a stink. He didn't go to the media. He didn't do anything. All he did was work hard to try to get that contract. Shouldn't that stand for something in these negotiations?
It has to, because he's one of the rare players, even right now, end of August, that has leverage because of all these things we're talking about, right? And he outkicked his coverage in New England, right? And he was this kind of player basically 6 years ago. So he's never had a true and tried quarterback. The Raiders have gone and done that. And, this is not a 5-10 year plan with Geno Smith. So you want to attach your hip to this situation for what it is, which is a 1 to 2 year process. So he's looking for more money, fully guaranteed for the next 2 years, maybe 3 years if he can get it. And we don't have to break the bank to do it. We just got to make it better than $11 million. That's all.
Do you see a scenario, and we've seen this with a couple other teams or players, Max Crosby did it a couple off seasons ago where the Raiders gave him basically a bonus or a raise. They put some money on top of his salary. Trey Hendrickson, we just saw that. Do you see a scenario where the Raiders might go in that route with Jakobi?
It's not good business for him from the players. Look, the team probably has tried that route already and probably made it incentives that are very attainable, very gettable. If I'm Jakobi Meyers, because of my age, because I know I've got a 2-year window before that scary red flag 30-year-old hits, I want to make sure I get myself done right now so that I can get myself back to the market at around 30 and then have that kind of conversation about incentive-laden contracts. He really hasn't broken the bank yet, despite the fact that he's having career years kind of year in and year out. So my agent advice to him right now, if I'm looking at it from the player's perspective, is hold out until you get that 2-year guarantee. Don't go sweeten the pot because, as we've seen with Hendrickson, once you do it once, they make you do it again.
Yes, that's true. That's that's the biggest mistake that Trey Hendrickson made. You hit that right there on the head. Again, Michael Giannetti, SpotTrack.com, is with us here. Raider Nation Radio 920. So let's just say he plays out this season and then hits free agency in the offseason. What kind of a contract do you think is realistic for him to expect to be able to hit from another team not named the Raiders?
Yeah, so I think the name to look at in that regard would be Calvin Ridley. Not a similar career, but kind of a similar style of play. He's been that type of receiver for his teams, whereas he's got number one potential. At times he's been asked to be a number one, but nothing about him kind of feels like a true number one receiver. So he's been the best free agent wide receiver available. So when you look at his contract, you're around that 24 to 27 per year mark. I think that's realistic, especially with a salary cap next year. That could be $300 million across the league. So, a $25 million per year free agent contract for a wide receiver who could give you 1,000 yards and 80 catches is value for some teams, and it's certainly value for this Raiders team right now.
So I know right when he said, $28 million possibly a year, I'm sure everyone was like, whoa, wait, hold on, $28 million. I don't see it being that high. I really don't. Again, I don't know what Jakobi and his representation is asking for. Don't know what they should be asking for. But all I know, as I mentioned on the show late last week, is that the salary cap continues to go up all the time. We see all these contracts go up. We see all these other guys that go about things not necessarily the right way as far as I'm concerned. They either hold in, hold out, go to the media and start popping off or, just become a big-time distraction, and he's not been any of that. So, aim high in your contract negotiations, knowing that there's going to be a settling point, and it probably won't be as high as, you started. So if they start out at 28, maybe they settle at 23. I like how Michael Giannetti was talking about, 2 for 50 for Terry McLaurin. Maybe that's as simple as it is for Jakobi. 2 for 40, 2 for 45, fully guaranteed, something like that. Why not? Right? I mean, and again, at 28 years old, there shouldn't be a big issue, right? I think that he's continuing to trend up, not trend back. But again, we'll see what they do. But I just wanted to kind of bring some context as, again, I heard the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920, Vinny Bonsignore and Vince Sapienza talking about there's no way he's going to get a contract that has a 2 in front of it. And you know what? Maybe he doesn't. But I don't think it's crazy for him to ask for that or his representation to ask for that. Why wouldn't you? So, again, not knowing how much that they're asking for, I do think that there's a good opportunity for the Raiders to go ahead and seal the deal and get a deal done with him that is good for him and also good for them. But we'll see how this thing all plays out. It very well could be, a situation where he just has to play this year out and then just, figure out what they're going to do afterwards. Maybe they end up franchising him. Maybe they let him walk in free agency. Who knows? But just because he requested a trade doesn't mean he's necessarily going to get traded. But I thought I'd bring that part of that conversation to the table, just a little kind of a reference point for Raider Nation. Put up in segment number 3, your calls and texts as you close out the show, 707-654-4693. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple more sponsors that we have here on the show and let you know that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season, it is here, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season's here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. And if you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, so many teams across the network are playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. The season's kicking off on Thursday at September 4th. Now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode where the lowest scoring teams get eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with your friends? Try the new draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league. That is the easiest way to play. The NFL season, it's here. Kicks off Thursday, September 4th. Don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. I also want to tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Nobody wants to do that. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, you can categorize all your spending, finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Yay, no spreadsheets. Nobody wants to do that. But what they want to do is get in control. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts. Draft that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Got a lot of calls and texts to try to hustle through as many as possible. Start things off with Rodney, Northwest Raider. He's calling to talk about this team and who they're going to be this year as far as their identity. Here's Rodney, the Northwest Raider.
What up, Q? What up, Ari? What up, Raider Nation? This is Rodney, Northwest Raider, calling in. I know there's been a lot of talk about Bash and Cooper coming on and things like that, and a lot of people who want to trade Big Mike for prospects who are out there. Just keep in mind, this is Pete Carroll. It's going to be a run-first team. That's why the committee's there with Genty and Zamir and Mostert. We're going to run the ball. So these guys, Besh and Myers, JP going to guard. This is all based on running the ball. Those guys are going to do the dirty work. You mean make the blocks, open the holes, get the ball moving from the backfield. So Jack Bash, we might not see the biggest receiver production. Hopefully we get that from Jakobi Meyers. By the way, pay that man his money. Let's go ahead and keep him, Amari Cooper, and schedule a field with Thornton and Tucker as an option to free up to keep the defense honest. But we're going to run the ball. And the Beshes and the Myers and those things, they do the dirty work. They're going to allow us to do that. So looking forward to see how Kelly's going to figure that out. But hoping for a good season. I know that's a plan. Sometimes plans will come to fruition. But still hopeful over here. Once again, this is Rodney, Northwest Raider. Raider Nation, have a good one. Just win, baby.
Big Rodney Owen Joe Cooley, man. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate that. No doubt, running the rock is going to be the key to everything, right? Talked about that in segment number 1. Strengths, offensive line coming together, running the ball. Everything is built off the running game. If they can get the ground game going, which I believe they will, everything else will be able to build off that. So, you got to be able to, make sure your offensive line is in place, and they're going to be on point. When you're talking about the pass catchers that the Raiders have that do the dirty work as well, blocking, that's valuable too. Guys like Big Mike, they're really good at blocking. He's really come a long way when it comes to blocking. Jakobi Meyers, always willing to block. Jack Besh, he's a guy who, I know he's a rookie, but he's a guy that's a tough dude. He'll get in there and do the blocking as well. So to be able to have that, you can start to see some bubble screens, some wide receiver screens. You can just see some quick hitters that end up going for 10 or 12 yards because you have those blockers in front. So I do think that that's definitely going to be the identity of the team. And as that goes, they will go. So thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from the 916. Q, I'm a fan of the Raider Squad show. Also your show. How do I get that show every day? Is it an everyday show? It only shows up every once in a while on my podcast app or in my Apple phone. Thank you for your time, what you do for the Internet Nation. Maybe you meant Raider Nation. But anyway, text from the 916. Appreciate that. And yeah, the Raider Squad show is only twice a week. That's why you don't get it every day. It's Monday and Thursday. As a matter of fact, I know today's Labor Day, but we're going to be doing the show again this morning around 7:30. So based off what time you're listening, that's when it'll pop out. 7:30 to 8:30. It's 1 hour long, 1 hour strong. Live show with Chantel Chan. She's doing the Howard Cosell, and of course Lincoln Kennedy and myself as well. Really good show. Been getting a lot of really good feedback from that. So definitely appreciate that. But yeah, that's once a week. And as long as you're a subscriber to this podcast or a subscriber to the YouTube page, you'll automatically get the notifications. So thanks so much for that. And next time you text in, man, make sure you let me know your name so I can shout you out instead of just saying that you're from the 916, which shout out to Sacramento, California. Thanks so much. Up next, got a call from Apex Raider 757. His call actually went a little bit long, got cut off, but he's calling to talk about the Micah Parsons trade to Green Bay and if the Raiders should or should not have been in on it. Here he goes, Apex Raider in the 757.
Hey, Q, Raider Nation, what's up? This is Apex Raider calling out of the 757. I hope I'm not late to the game commenting on this big Micah Parsons trade to Green Bay, but I just wanted to give my thoughts and the collective idea that the Raiders were right to not pursue this trade, especially at the price it cost, even if many feel that it was generally a good deal for Green Bay and that they probably should have had to give up more. So right off the bat, you already mentioned it in your podcast that I was listening to from a couple days ago. The Raiders just extended Max Crosby, and, he's in the 30-some mil a year range, and Micah Parsons is, with his new deal, approaching $50 million, which blows out of the water, just a deal that was handed out to Max Crosby just a few seasons ago. Like, that's franchise quarterback money. You hear people giving someone like Justin Herbert flack for how much money he's making but not delivering on the win column. Well, this is a pass rusher we're talking about now who's making pretty comparable money, not even a quarterback, right? You add those two numbers up, the Raiders are, approaching, what is that, like over 70 million, maybe almost 80 million a year just on pass rushers. That doesn't really bode well, especially when you have guys like Brock Bowers coming down the pipeline who are due for their extension pretty soon. I'll mind you that the Raiders have 30-some mil in cap space as it stands, according to overthecap.com. On top of that, I feel like the whole concept of trying to take your star pass rusher and pair him up with another comparable stud, thinking that, you can't double everyone. It's a nice cliche we all like to say. But take a moment and think about how many times teams have tried that, whether it's through a big free agency contract, maybe the draft in the high round, or maybe even a trade like the Packers just did. How often does that actually work out? I don't even have to look outside of the Raiders to come up with plenty of examples where that was attempted and it just fell flat and set the Raiders back. You think of Khalil Mack and them signing Bruce Irvin to match up past him. That wasn't some stellar duo. They contributed on a decent defense, but that wasn't some stellar duo, and that's probably the best example of what actually somewhat did work out. You think of pairing up Max Crosby with Yannick Ngakoue. Okay, they both, held their own. Defense wasn't exactly standout. And then that was over after a single season. You think of the Chandler Jones deal, that went up in flames, right? He didn't compliment Max Crosby worth a damn even before he got traded, or released, excuse me. You think about drafting Tyree Wilson high, well, he got kicked inside the defensive tackle, and he might be on his last leg trying to make something of himself in this league.
And then his call got cut off. Apex, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. Yeah, you only get 3 minutes. So once 3 minutes happens, boom, it automatically disconnects you. So I try to remind people to get that call in as quickly as possible. Under 2 minutes would be fantastic just so we can squeeze a few more callers in. But I get it. Sometimes, it gets a little wordy. As anyone who does a show longer than what it's supposed to be, trust me, I know about all that. So I'm not worried about it. But a really good call. And yeah, we kind of get the gist of it, man. Max and Micah would be $82 million between the two guys just in that position. Could you imagine the Raiders paying $82 million to that position, having that dedicated just this year? Max is at $35 a year, and Micah's at $47. That would just be absolute ridiculous. Just such a spending point. Like, I just couldn't see a team doing that. And, a lot of times it looks good on paper. Even the Christian Wilkins situation, you brought up a bunch of other ones, but even Christian Wilkins, and I know he plays a different position, but that's what he was brought in for, right? To be that guy for Max Crosby, to make life easier for Max. And we all see how that worked out. It lasted 5 games. So, it's one of those things. It's so hard. On paper, everything looks great. On Madden, everything looks fantastic. But in real life, it's just so hard to match these guys up and really get them to complement each other at the best level. I think for the Raiders this year, Tyree Wilson, who's going inside and out. Got a guy like Malcolm Kuntz who's working his way back. You've got some other guys that you brought in that could be part of the rotation. Jonah Laulu in the defensive tackle room, and others like that. I Tonka Hemingway, obviously a rookie, JJ Pegues, right? You got Thomas Booker the fourth. I think he's going to have a significant role. So yeah, I mean, it's just hard to say, hey, just go and make a trade for that guy, bring him in, and let him be, a tag team partner to Max Crosby. Those bloodthirsty Pirates are going to get after the quarterback, and it's going to be wonderful. We've talked about that so many times, and it just doesn't really seem to work out that way. I could even go back to cornerbacks and talk about, remember when Nnamdi was a top flight corner and the Raiders went and made the move for D'Angelo Hall? You couldn't tell me nothing, man. I thought nobody was going to be able to throw. It's a no-fly zone, baby. You're not going to be able to throw against the Raiders. They're taking the ball the other way every time. Yeah, well, we all know how that worked out. And if you don't know how it worked out, it didn't work out well. He was gone after like 8 games, so there's that. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Aldo in Sonora, Mexico. He says, hey, Q. Aldo from Sonora, Mexico here. Thank you and Ari for all the awesome work you guys do each and every day to keep Raider Nation well informed and entertained. Also, huge props for the Raiders Squad show. All Raiders content's appreciated, especially during the offseason. You guys have done one hell of a job. Can't wait to hear your game week commentary and reactions as the season goes. I'm really hyped for this season. I'm ecstatic because I'll be in Allegiant for the season home opener week 2 for my first Raiders regular season game. Hope I get to see you there. Don't let us know if fans get a chance to holler at you. No, do let us know if fans get a chance to holler at you before the game, being a primetime divisional matchup. I'm sure the stadium will be rocking. Raider Nation will be going crazy. I know I will, and I hope that home field and atmosphere we sorely need in Vegas could finally be unlocked this year and for years to come. They say in Vegas, the house always wins. Let's make that a true statement. That being said, hope we get to see a big fat win over the Chargers to build some positive momentum for this year. Sorry for the lengthy text. Keep with the great work. Peace. That's Aldo in Sonora, Mexico. You know the funny thing, talking about home field advantage, and we know how it is at Allegiant Stadium. There's so many visitors that come there. The thing is with the Chargers and their fan base obviously not being as large as they would like it to be, this is actually a good way to start the season. Get the home crowd there for week 1 at Allegiant Stadium, get it all built up. It was similar like that when they had the season home opener last year against the Carolina Panthers. It's like, oh, there's not going to be a lot of Carolina Panthers fans there, and there wasn't. Now, the team on the field didn't do their job, but I do think that the Raiders have an opportunity to make a hell of a statement at Allegiant Stadium. Raider Nation has an opportunity to make a hell of a statement at Allegiant Stadium, Monday Night Football. But the team's got to do their job, right? I always have faith in Raider Nation. I always know that they're going to show up and show out. Even when there's a lot of the opposing fans there, it's still loud. Anytime the Raiders need, as a team, their fans to get loud, they get loud and proud there. That's the one thing I can always tip the cap to Raider Nation about at Allegiant Stadium. And, yeah, definitely be able to holler at me before the game. I'll be there at the Torch on Coors Light Landing. I'll be there until, the game kicks off at, 7 o'clock. It's a late one, so I'll probably be there. I got to do my radio show from Silver Sevens. I'll be doing Monday Night Football from Silver 7 here in town, but then I'll make my way right over. As soon as 5 o'clock hits, boom, hustle over to Allegiant Stadium and be there until kickoff around Coors Light Landing. So definitely would like to meet you and say what's up and, chop it up a little Raider conversation. So thanks, Aldo, for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you week 2. Up next, got a call from Tadrees in New Jersey. He's calling to talk also about the Micah Parsons situation and talks about when Micah has struggled, and that's when it counts the most. Here's Tadrees in New Jersey.
Q? Yeah, Tadrees here from New Jersey. Just weighing in on that Micah Parsons deal. And on the surface, everybody, they were like, this is crazy for the Cowboys to do this. This is crazy. But, some diehard, Cowboy fan, Skip Bayless, I just happened to find one of his videos by accident. And, no one supports the Cowboys more than him. Micah Parsons haven't really showed up in the playoffs. They got blown out 27-0 at the half by Green Bay. And, his stats, with him on the defensive front, you allow 27-0 to be put on your heads at home. And then the year before that, they didn't do anything against San Francisco. He had like 1 tackle, no sacks. You know what I mean? You got to show up when it counts. I think he was more hurt that he was going to be losing the star of the the lure of the Cowboy star, which might hurt his podcast. You know what I mean? I know a lot of athletes today have podcasts. Max got his, but it doesn't seem to affect his play on the field. Draymond Green. I'm just, a lot of points that was brought out about how he stays out. He's kind of small. And as the season goes on, he doesn't get that same production. He doesn't get those those sacks. He might accumulate them a lot earlier in the season and such, but then when it comes time for playoffs, he's nowhere to be found. He might as well be home with the Raiders. You know what I mean? We building a new culture over here is what I'm trying to say. And I like the direction that I'm seeing. You know what I mean? So I'm glad. And to the points that you made on Friday, you can't bring him over and have him making more money than Max Crosby. No way, no how. So, yeah, I'm glad. Big shout out to Ari. I don't even watch YouTube, so I still got to give him a shout out because I know how much you love him and how much he means to Raider Nation. And Raider Nation loves you, Q, for all the things that you do, man. Just win, baby. And I'm glad, before I go, real quick, I'm glad Mark Davis is not Jerry Jones. You know what I'm saying? Like, give him some love, too. Mark Davis!
Tadrees, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And, yeah, that blowout loss to Green Bay in Dallas, in their own crib, that was embarrassing. Now, a lot of that had to do with the turnovers that the offense had, too. They had a bunch of turnovers, got them behind the 8 ball immediately, but that has been a part of Micah Parsons' game that has been knocked. In the playoffs, he hasn't really showed up and showed out. Now, the fact is he got to the playoffs to have an opportunity to show up and show out. I'd like to see the Raiders get to the playoffs consistently to have that opportunity. I mean, this is a guy, Micah Parsons, coming off a team that went 12-5, 12-5, and 12-5, and he played a role in there, right? When you get 52.5 sacks in 4 years, you're doing really good. So that is a knock. He does have to get better, but at least they're consistently in the playoffs, and he's had that chance to be there. I'd like to see the Raiders have that chance to be in the playoffs and go out there and battle it out, right? I'd like to see Max Crosby consistently in the playoffs, but it's going to have to take for the team to come together and be that team. So, yeah, I mean, Micah's got things to work on. Now he's got no excuse now that he's got the bag, over $188 million with so much guaranteed, $120 million guaranteed at signing? That is just ridiculous, and $47 million a year. But big ups to him, man. I'm not mad at any player that can get their bag at all. So, Tadrees, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. This text comes from George, the Jack Tatum Raider. Q, the salary cap is $279 million this year. There's money available. That's FU money. It's free money from the league. Raiders are $90 million under the cap. Why not pay another superstar? Money is not and should not be a concern. They're already underpaying everyone. That's reason to be underpaying people is to pay the stud that becomes available. Personally, don't care if they got Parsons or not, but why be under the cap where there are studs available? As George, the Jack Tatum Raider, and he said, correction, each team received $432.6 million from the league in 2024. Salary cap is $279 million. So we get the point of the text, George. Thanks so much for it. I do appreciate you. The Raiders aren't $90 million under the cap this year. They're about $30. They do have space. Don't get me wrong. They have money, but it's definitely not 90, right? Maybe you're looking at 90 for 2025. Or 2026, I should say. That's possible, but it's not 90 million this year. Trust to believe that. But I mean, yeah, you could pay them, but are they one Micah Parsons away from taking a step, right? Or do they have other holes to fill? Is he going to cure everything? Is he going to fix everything? Oh, by the way, you're giving up draft capital as well. That's the thing. It's not like you're just paying them. If you're just paying them free agency money, that's one thing, but you're also giving up draft capital. So are you comfortable with 2 first-round picks going to Dallas and you not having them for the next couple of years? Are you comfortable that Geno Smith is going to be your quarterback? He's going to be so stinking good that the next 3 years, even though he's under contract, you're not going to think that, hey, maybe the Raiders need to get a franchise guy? Are you that comfortable with this roster right now? That's where I'm at. That if they were a team, and look, let's use Green Bay. If they were a team like Green Bay who was in the playoffs a year ago, they have their franchise quarterback, they have the youngest team in the league, and that's what Green Bay has, the youngest team in the league, then I could see the Raiders making a move like that. But they're not in that same position. So that I didn't think it made a lot of sense. But a lot of Raider Nation called in and said, hey, man, they should have done that, should have made that move. Him and Max Crosby would have been fantastic together. And, well, we've talked about trying to pair up stars and how often that really works. But, thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. It's good to hear from you. And, again, hopefully everyone enjoys their Labor Day. Again, we got the Raider Squad show, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. And then practice this afternoon, 2:30 to 3:50. That'll be the approximate time when the media's out there and available to check out practice. And then around 3:50, we'll talk to some select players in the press conference room at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. So, of course, we'll be talking about that coming up tomorrow. And, again, game week. So starting to talk about the New England Patriots and how the Raiders match up. So excited that we made it. We got through all the offseason, and now it is here. It is game week. So we'll keep the party rolling. More calls, more texts tomorrow, more news and notes. And, of course, plenty of conversation about the silver and black. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.